This road exists only as long as winter allows it. Across Dolphin and Union Strait, sea ice has joined Victoria Island to the Canadian mainland, creating a temporary passage over water hundreds of meters deep. But the surface is already under pressure. Wind drives snow across fractured plates, tides pull beneath them. Dark leads widen between pressure ridges, quietly dividing one continuous route into a maze of unstable ice. At the southern edge of Victoria Island, a herd of Dolphin and Union Caribou waits in the fog. The animals do not step forward immediately. Heads remain low, hooves test the frozen margin. Calves stand close to their mothers, while the adults study a surface that can support them in one place and fail only a few meters away. Beyond the shoreline lies no marked trail, only the shifting bridge their migration has depended upon for generations. To reach the mainland, the herd must cross brittle ice, open water, and deep slush before exhaustion exposes its weakest members. The question is not simply whether the caribou can cross the sea. It is whether they can reach solid ground before the road beneath them breaks apart. Before dawn, the southern coast of Victoria Island seems to run unbroken into the Dolphin and Union Strait. Snow races over the shoreline until land and sea appear to be the same surface. The caribou knows otherwise. This is the Dolphin and Union population, a Canadian Arctic caribou group defined by a rare seasonal behavior. Twice each year, it migrates between Victoria Island and the mainland of Nunavut and the Northwest Territories across sea ice. In autumn, animals gather along the island's southern coast and wait for a frozen route thick enough to carry them. Crossings commonly begin on young ice, roughly 15 to 30 centimeters thick. But thickness alone does not make a road safe. Sea ice is a layered structure of frozen water, trapped air, brine channels, older slabs, and newly formed sections. Wind and currents force some plates together, lifting broken blocks into pressure ridges. Elsewhere, dark seams reveal narrow leads of open water. Snow hides many of these differences, turning the surface into a white field whose strength cannot be judged by sight alone. So the herd waits and reads. The animals nearest the edge lower their heads and place their front feet carefully against the darker ice. A hoof presses down, withdraws, then returns with more weight. They are not measuring thickness in numbers. They are responding to resistance, sound, visible fractures, and the behavior of the animals ahead. Their feet are built for this uncertainty. Each hoof is divided into two broad toes that spread under pressure, increasing the area supporting the body. Large dew claws add contact in soft snow, while hard outer rims grip slick ice. The underside is concave, useful for scraping snow from lichen. Later, if the bridge opens into water, the same wide hooves will work as paddles. Each step also produces a dry click. The sound comes from a tendon slipping over a bone inside the foot, not simply from the hoof striking ice. In fog and blowing snow, hundreds of these clicks form a moving acoustic trail through the herd. The cold is equally demanding. Caribou carry a dense undercoat beneath hollow guard hairs. Air trapped inside and between those hairs reduces heat loss and will add buoyancy if the animals are forced to swim. Yet insulation cannot replace energy. Standing in wind, lifting the legs through snow, and maintaining body temperature all consume reserves needed for the crossing. The scattered animals begin to draw together. Mothers keep calves close to larger bodies. Individuals farther back align behind those already testing the shoreline. A snowy owl passes above the pressure ridges. An Arctic fox moves along the terrestrial edge. Farther inland, musk oxen remain on stable ground. None follows the caribou across the strait. Beneath the first animals, another ecosystem waits. Melocera arctica ice algae hangs from the underside of the frozen ceiling. Calanus copepods pulse through the dark water nearby. When a hoof touches down, the vibration travels through the ice. Fine crystals loosen beside a microscopic fissure and fall into the water column. The step does not fracture the bridge. It reveals a surface already shaped by pressure, current, and hidden structure. At the front of the herd, one caribou lifts a foreleg from the dependable snow of Victoria Island. Its toes spread as the hoof meets the darker surface. The ice holds. The first animal shifts its full weight forward, and the migration begins. For several seconds, the first caribou remains still, its weight balanced over the darker surface. Then it takes another step. A second animal follows, placing its hoof inside the compressed track. Behind it comes another, and then another, until the waiting herd begins to leave Victoria Island. Moving this way saves each animal from repeatedly lifting and pushing untouched snow. More importantly, hesitation at the front passes backward through the herd almost instantly. The ice offers few visual clues. Under the overcast sky, shadows almost disappear, flattening ridges, hollows, and fractures into the same grey-white surface. Yet caribou perceive this world differently from humans. Their eyes admit ultraviolet wavelengths down to approximately 320 to 350 nanometers, light invisible to the human eye. Snow reflects ultraviolet strongly, while many biological materials absorb it and appear darker. During winter, the reflective layer behind a caribou's retina also changes from gold to deep blue. Laboratory measurements suggest that the winter eye can become at least 1,000 times more sensitive to weak light than the summer eye. Even so, vision cannot reveal the internal strength of sea ice. The herd approaches a pressure ridge and bends into a wide arc. These frozen barriers form when wind and currents force separate ice sheets together, driving broken blocks upward. Beneath it lies a much larger keel, often extending 5 or 6 times deeper than the ice rises above the surface, and in extreme cases reaching tens of meters into the ocean. For the caribou, only the upper wall matters. The line tightens as each animal moves through a narrow channel between tilted blocks. Legs rise higher, strides shorten. The animals sacrifice speed to preserve balance. A polar bear rests on a ridge nearby, watching the dark line pass. But the bear's position on the ice is tied more closely to another animal. Beside a circular breathing hole, a ringed seal lifts its wet head above the water. Ringed seals are the smallest Arctic seals, commonly measuring about 1.2 to 1.4 meters and weighing roughly 50 to 68 kilograms. Their short foreflippers carry powerful claws capable of maintaining breathing holes through more than 1.8 meters of ice. When feeding, they may dive beyond 90 meters. Returning to openings, they must relocate from beneath an otherwise unbroken ceiling. For the seal, a hole in the ice is survival. For the caribou, it is a warning. The herd curves around it and continues forward. Above, bodies pass one after another. Below, their shadows sweep across strands of Melocera arctica ice algae. A young Arctic cod hovers beneath the frozen ceiling. Seawater here can remain liquid near -1.8 degrees Celsius, cold enough to freeze the body fluids of most fish. Nearby, copepods drift through the darkness. These tiny crustaceans may store lipids equal to as much as 70% of their dry body mass, converting brief pulses of algal growth into concentrated energy for fish, seals, seabirds, and whales. Then a new vibration passes through the ice. The animals at the front have stopped. Beyond the pressure ridge, black water cuts cleanly across the route. The single-file line compresses behind them, carrying the weight of the entire herd toward the edge of an open lead. The bridge continues, but no longer as solid ground. Those behind continue to arrive, compressing the long migration line into a dense mass between the pressure ridges. The animals nearest the opening step sideways along the fractured rim. One lowers its muzzle toward the moving water. Another places a hoof on the overhanging edge, feels it shift, and immediately withdraws. A female keeps her calf tight against her flank. The opposite ice shelf is visible through the mist, but there is no continuous surface leading to it. At the center of the Dolphin and Union Strait, the caribou must abandon the movement that has carried them from Victoria Island. Walking is no longer possible. A white back rises inside the lead. The beluga exhales through its blowhole, then rolls beneath the broken ice. An adult can measure approximately 3.5 to 5.5 meters and weigh as much as 1,500 kilograms. In large individuals, blubber may account for around 40% of total body mass, forming an insulating barrier between warm tissue and Arctic seawater. The whale has no dorsal fin. Instead, a low, reinforced ridge runs along its back, allowing it to move beneath rough sea ice without striking a projecting fin against the frozen ceiling. Its neck vertebrae are not fused, giving it unusual flexibility when locating narrow openings for air. This open lead belongs to the beluga's world. The caribou can only pass through it. Farther along the ice wall, a bearded seal surfaces, its long, pale whiskers spreading over the water. At roughly 2.1 to 2.4 meters long, and often between 260 and 360 kilograms, it is the largest true seal regularly found in the Arctic. Its whiskers are not ornamental. Each vibrissa is connected to sensitive nerves, capable of detecting movement and contact near the sea floor, helping the seal locate clams, crustaceans, and fish in dark water. Nearby, a ringed seal remains close to one of its maintained breathing holes. These marine mammals can wait beneath the ice. The herd cannot. One adult moves to the lowest section of the rim. It bends its forelegs, shifts its weight forward, and drops. The black surface closes around its chest. For a moment, the caribou sinks lower than expected. Then the trapped air inside its hollow guard hairs lifts the shoulders and neck. The nostrils remain above the surface. All four legs begin to work. The broad hooves spread during each backward stroke, increasing the area pushing against the water. During recovery, the toes draw closer together, reducing resistance. Adult caribou have been recorded swimming at speeds approaching 9.7 kilometers per hour. But speed here is not used to chase or escape. It limits exposure. The first animal moves toward the opposite shelf. A second enters. Then the lead fills with caribou. The herd stretches across the water in a broken line. Mothers swim beside their calves, preventing the smaller bodies from being carried too far along the channel. Above, a glaucous gull circles over the disturbance. Below, the migration passes across an ecosystem normally hidden by the bridge. The caribou survive by getting out. The first swimmer reaches the far wall and strikes it with both forelegs. Its hooves scrape across the vertical ice, slip, then catch inside a fractured groove. Others follow the same exit point. Once clear, they shake with enough force to throw seawater from the outer coat before it freezes into a heavy crust. Wet calves press between adults, legs tremble, breathing deepens, and the herd gathers again on the next section of seasonal ice. Behind them, the beluga surfaces once more. Ahead, the route toward the Northwest Territories mainland continues across broken white ground. The herd has passed through the water. But it has not yet recovered from it. After the open lead, the herd reaches a dark rocky islet rising from the seasonal ice of Dolphin and Union Strait. It is not the mainland, but for a few minutes it offers something the fractured bridge cannot: ground that does not flex beneath their weight. The caribou stop almost together. Some lower themselves onto the snow with their legs folded beneath the body. Others remain standing, sides heaving, salt water freezing along the lower coat. A tired animal rests its chin against a snow-covered boulder. Another tear at moss and lichen exposed between the rocks. Rest does not mean inactivity. Caribou are ruminants with a four-compartment stomach. Food swallowed earlier returns to the mouth as cud, where it is chewed again before microbial fermentation continues in the rumen. Lichens provide important winter carbohydrates, but extracting that energy takes time. Even while lying still, the herd is processing fuel for the crossing ahead. A snow bunting hops among them, taking seeds and plant fragments exposed by their hooves. Its core remains above 38 degrees Celsius, while its toes may stay only slightly above freezing due to a countercurrent heat exchange system. At the edge of the islet, a wolverine follows the disturbed trail, but does not approach the adults. It walks plantigrade, with the entire sole of each broad foot against the snow, spreading its weight across the surface. The pause cannot last. The caribou rises and steps down from the rocks into fractured ice. Ahead, the snow-covered mainland bluffs opposite Victoria Island are becoming clearer. But near the mainland-facing shelf, the surface changes again. By mid-afternoon, solid ice gives way to slush. The first hoof punches through a wet crust and sinks. As the leg pulls forward, the slush closes around it, creating drag from every side. On hard ice, energy produces distance. Here, much of it is spent simply extracting the foot. The herd slows. Adults lift their knees higher. calves struggle to place their feet inside the broken tracks. Water and granular ice surge around their lower legs. In an adjacent lead, a king eider rests on black water. Over a year, this sea duck may travel more than 14,000 kilometers between Arctic breeding grounds and marine wintering areas. Dense down traps air near the skin, while preening oil helps keep the insulating layer dry. The eider can remain in the water. The caribou is being trapped by it. A white shape appears along a solid pressure ridge. An Arctic wolf runs parallel to the herd. Wolves commonly trot at about 8 kilometers per hour, may cover nearly 48 kilometers in a day, and can reach approximately 60 kilometers per hour in short bursts. This one does not charge. It matches the herd's reduced speed, watching for a calf or exhausted adult to drift away. The caribou reacts before the distance closes. The migration line collapses. Adults turn inward and sideways, compressing the herd into a dense defensive mass. Calves are pushed toward the center. Around them stands a perimeter of antlers, shoulders, and heavy hooves. The landscape leaves little room for another response. Open leads block one side. Pressure ridges form walls on the other. Behind lies the deep slush that has already drained their strength. The wolf continues along the perimeter, but no caribou breaks away. Without separation, there is no easy target. At last, the predator slows. The herd remains compressed for several more moments. Then the outer animals turn toward the mainland. The defensive wall opens into a line again, and the calves move forward between larger bodies. The defensive wall opens into a line again. Calves move forward between larger bodies as the herd resumes its push toward the mainland. The Arctic wolf remains behind on the pressure ridge, unable to isolate a target. Ahead, every step is still slow, but the slush is beginning to thin. The first change is felt through the hooves. Wet granular ice gives way to firmer snow. Legs no longer have to be pulled free from suction with every stride. The animals lower their knees, their steps become longer, and the broken rhythm of the herd begins to settle. Then the leading caribou climbed onto the mainland facing shelf. Beyond it lies the snow-covered coastal tundra of the Northwest Territories, the first permanent ground they have touched since leaving Victoria Island. At approximately 1715, the front of the herd steps off the sea ice. The difference is immediate. Across Dolphin and Union Strait, the animals had been forced to balance over brittle ice, pressure ridges, open water and slush. Small stabilizing muscles in the legs, shoulders and spine had worked continuously to keep each body upright. On land, that constant correction is no longer necessary. Caribou begin to move with lower, smoother steps. Some spread away from the migration line. Others stop only a short distance inland, sides still heaving from the final effort. Salt water stiffens the lower coat, while wet calves remain close to adults until their breathing slows. Behind them, the bridge is still moving. Open leads widen between isolated white flowers. Waves strike the vertical ice margins, and blowing snow crosses the pressure ridges the herd has just escaped. From above, the route no longer resembles a continuous road. It has become a broken pattern of dark water and drifting ice. A Pacific loon remains in one of the open leads. Its legs sit far back on the body, turning the feet into powerful underwater propellers. That design makes it an efficient swimmer and diver, but awkward on land. The loon remains where water is an advantage. The caribou have reached the ground their bodies were built to cross. Below the remaining ice, the disturbance fades. The copepods continue pulsing through the water, and Arctic cod return to the shadowed underside of the floes. The vibrations of the herd are gone, but the sub-ice ecosystem continues without them. As twilight deepens, the herd spreads across the coastal tundra. Some animals push through snow to reach lichen. Others lower themselves with their legs folded beneath the body. An Arctic hare appears among the rocks, its white winter coat blending into the mainland snow. A snowy owl passes above the resting herd before disappearing into the blue-grey distance. By 1900, movement had nearly stopped. Heart rates and breathing begin to fall. Digestion continues. Muscles shift from sustained effort toward repair, and body heat is conserved beneath dense winter coats. Across the strait, the temporary bridge fades into darkness. For the caribou, the crossing is over. The mainland now holds their weight. The caribou have secured their footing on the mainland, surviving the extreme physical demands of the fractured strait. But survival in the wild requires constant physiological adaptation. Thousands of miles south, a different herd faces an entirely different thermodynamic challenge. To see how North American bison engineer their survival around Yellowstone's boiling geothermal vents in the dead of winter, click the video on your screen now.